Hello, today we're going to talk about AuraTester and about AuraTester, how to create tests, and of Oracle Forms, automation tests, and how to run them. So first, that's the Service Manager. Let's go to AuraTester Manager. In AuraTester Manager, we can either create a test case or integrate test groups and or run test groups and test cases. Okay, so let's start by creating test case. You can click on the plus sign. We can either create new web service, record Oracle Forms web service and create test from scratch, or use an existing web service or pre-created test case and create a new one. So let's use an existing test case, get customer details and create a test case from it. Okay, so I chose the web service and I will click on create. Now I should give it a unique name. The description would be preferable. The response type would be either JSON or XML, and the response level is either error. In error it would give us just success if the test was successful, and just in case of error it would give me what was the error description and what was the field that was returned that caused the error. And if we'll click on debug, we would have the full details of all the input parameters and all the output parameters. Next we have batch parameters. Batch parameters is an input file with multiple lines. Every line would be run as a separate test case and would be validated separately. So we can use that parameters file, or we can use static variables. So in this example, we're going to use static variables. For example, the name would be Mia, the password would be the same password, and the input parameters of customer ID would remain 203. We can of course change it, but we'll keep it as 203. Now regarding the output parameters, in every test case would be the input that would trigger and change events, and the output would be the values that would be returned from the form. So I can perform validation on those fields. For example, I know when I enter 203, the response, the customer name would be Delhi. Delhi is sports good. So I can make the test fail if the response is empty, or make the test fail if the response does not contain the word Delhi. Okay, let's click on save. I can perform validation, of course, on every field on the form, and I can make sure that there are no pop-up messages, because for me, if there are pop-up messages, then it's a failure. Okay, so I'll fail if the response is not empty. If there are pop-up messages, then the test would fail. Another thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that the test would not run more than 5 seconds. If it would run for more than 5 seconds, then it would fail. And I'll click on save. Okay, so now we have created the test case. This is the test case we've created, and we can test it. Let's click on run. And we can see that the test has succeeded and it lasted for less than half a second. Okay, so this would be our new test case. Now, if we would want to run the test case from a different location, there's a URL, there's a API to run this test case. There's an API to run this test case. I can also export this test case to JUnit, to run it as a JUnit test case, or in WebLoad for load testing. So there are a few options to run this specific test case. Let's go back and go to test groups. Test groups, it's actually a few test cases gathered together. let's go to regression test. We can go to regression test and add some more test cases to it. Let's go click on edit, and we can add either create a new test case or edit existing test cases from the one that we just created. Or let's go back and continue. We don't want to save anything. We can just select a few test cases and add them to an existing group. Let's take those 4 and add them to the regression test group. And you can see here that we're going to add them. Let's save. And now when we're going to run this test group, all the test cases in this test group we're going to run, and we're going to get the response eventually if the test case was successful or not. All those test cases would run. We can see that all those test cases ran and were successful. You see this test case had some debug level in it, so we can see all the input and all the output parameters, and the rest of the test cases were just error details, and we can see just that they were successful. So that would be the easiest way to run those test group. And this URL you can see here, that's the test group URL. We can use this URL to run the test case from continuous integration system. That's actually our API to run this test group, and you can analyze the response in the continuous integration system. Now, another thing that we can do, if we go to the monitoring manager, we can run these test cases or test groups every interval of time. So that would be actually active monitoring of our form server. So in this case, I have a logon web service test case that runs every 30 minutes and make sure that the logon succeeds. If the logon fails, then I get an email. You can see here I can have a mail notification to my email. So I can add a new test case. Let's a new test agent actually. Let's use the last one that I created, get customer details. That's the last one that I created. And you can see it would run every 10 minutes. We can edit it and make sure that it would run every 30 minutes. And if it's going to fail, it's going to mail to my email with a message that get customer details failed. Let's say on this server, on 5 server. And that's it. Now this test is going to run every 30 minutes, and I can see, let's look at an existing test. We can see its response time for the last 24 hours or more. As I define it, it can be defined in the properties file. Okay, thank you very much.